I'm going to follow in the next 20 or 30 lines the version of the Shari Torah's Eretz Yisrael. As you see, there are many commentaries, long and verbose commentaries here on the page. So that means it's a difficult passage. And I'm going to use the Shari Torah's Yisrael, who basically solves everything by changing basically almost every single word in the next 15 or 20 lines. Okay? That should not faze us. We do that all the time in Yerushalmi, right? Now, we have to think about this conceptually, therefore, and not so verbally. Me'ayom im mesi. If a guy says about a get which he's giving to his wife, it should be a get from today, if I die. Now, if I die is the same as saying when I die. I'm going to use if and when interchangeably, but it says Me'ayom from today, if I die. Right? 3 days from today, right. Me'achsher mesi, or from now, which is the same thing as saying Me'ayom mesi, if I die. Harei get, that's a valid get. Why? Because that get takes place when? When is the get taking actually place? What? Now, today, right. Me'ayom, me'achsher, right. When she receives it. Now, however, if he says Me'ayom ul'achar moisi, if he says from today and after my death, right, not with my death or if I die or when I die, rather after my death, ain't no get, it's not a get. The question is why the distinction. In both cases it said me'ayom. Yet in the first case he said when I die, and now he's saying after I die. So the second case says it's no good. Now here we should immediately put in a machlokas. There's a Shari Torah throws in Tani Rebbe Omer Harei get. Rebbe says it is a valid get. Even if you say from today and after my death, it still is a valid get. Okay? Why? Makes sense, because it's effective today. So what difference does it make? What difference does it make what the conditional clause is as long as the get is effective immediately? Amar Rabbi Yudan. Rabbi Yudan said, instead of Rabbanin, the next word should be Rebbe. Rebbe and Rabboseinu both ask questions on the Tanakama of this Mishnah. I'm sorry, not the Mishnah. They ask of this Mishnah, right? So they ask a question on our Mishnah. They both ask questions on our Mishnah. Now, our Mishnah said, if you take a look back at the Mishnah a minute, the Mishnah said, could I turn back to the Mishnah? Halacha Gimel, beginning, you see the Mishnah? The Mishnah says, Zegi techi meisi, this is your get it when I die. Zegi tech mecholi says, your get it when I expire from this illness. Zegi tech lachem mitzvah, my get after my death. Lo amar klum. It's not valid, right? Mayom im meisi, from today if I die, or when I die, me'achshav im meisi, I raise a get. Mayom l'milachem misasi, eno get, right? From today and after my death, it's not a valid get. The Mason, if he does die, choletz is lo misiyah behemis. So in essence, the line we just quoted is a line from our Mishnah. So Rabbi and Rabbi Seinu are going to ask on our Mishnah, which is the line we just quoted, how come Me'ayom L'Achar Mosi doesn't work? Okay? So now, let's start. It says here, Mesivin Rabbanan L'Rabbi Seinu, the Shari Torah changed that to Rebbe asks on Rabbanan. Okay? Rebbe asks on the rabbis the following. He says, Lama Atun Omrin Harei get. Why do you say in the case where he says, Mayom Im Mosi, from today, when I die, it's a valid get. Why in that case is a valid get? Begin the Omar Im, is it because he said, when I die? Nah, that can't be the reason. Vaha, because I'll prove that to you, Vaha says here Seifa, but it should be Reisha. The beginning of the Mishnah, which we just saw, says Im, right, Ve'im, Vatun Amri Meno get. There, since he didn't use the word Mehayom in the beginning of our mission, just said, this is your get when I die, it's not a valid get, right? So obviously, Im is not a factor which leads to leniency. The fact you said when, or if, is not a factor which leads to leniency. What, therefore, must be the factor which generates leniency? Ela begin to Amar Mehayom. It's because you said from today, or Me'achshav, from now. If that's the case, Oaf, so too, should be Ana, I, Kain is should be Li. I hold also. Me'ayom ikar. Me'ayom is primary. So what if Me'ayom is primary? That means that even if it says Me'ayom achar maisi, from today after I die, Since he said Mayom, and that's the primary thing we're looking for, so that should validate the get. That should make the get a valid get. Okay, now, the flip side of that, at top of Memal from Raal, the flip side of that is Mesivin, and here it says Mesivin, it says Mesiv Rebbe, it should say Mesivin Rabosenu, L'Rabbanan. The rabbis also asked, they asked on the Mishnah as well, said, Lamanatu Namrin, why do you say, it says here, Einon get, but it should be, why do you say Hareza get? In the case where a guy says Mayom im Mesi, from today with my death, why do you say it's a valid get? Because he says Mayom, right? That's what you say. Must say because you said Mayom. Can't be. Now bear in mind, the rabbis are attacking this from the other side. Rebbe said, if you say Mayom, basically what Rebbe said is, if you say Mayom im Misasi, from today with my death is valid, so too Mayom Achim Misasi should also be valid as well. There should be no distinction. Rabbanan are going to come in from the other side. They're going to say, if you're going to say that Mayom Achar Mosi is not valid, then it should say Mayom Imosi is also not valid. You're going to say from today and after my death is invalid, so too from today with my death should also not be valid, right? So again, starting from the top of my mouth and Ralph, instead of Mesiv Rebbe, Mesivin Rabbosein Rabbanan, our rabbis asked the Rabbanan, Lamatun Amran, why do you say it says Eino, but it should be see Hareza get? Why do you say Me'ayom im Mesi, it's a valid get? Because begin to Amar Me'ayom? It's because he says Mayom? That cannot be. I'll prove to you not. Why? V'ha, here it says V'ha Reisha, but it should be V'ha Seifa. The end of the Mishnah, the very end says Me'ayom and Lachar Moisi. It says there, he says there Ayom, but he says Lachar Moisi. Atun Armi, you say in that case, it says Hareza get, but it should be Eino get. You say in that case it's not a valid get. There was the case in Mishnah where you say Me'ayom, that's not a valid get. Mayom Lachar Misasi. Ella, so it must be that what is the mitigating factor, or what is the factor which begin to amar im, right? In other words, when you say im, so that's the factor which makes it permissible. Of in that case, so too it should be anan. We also Islan instead of li. We also hold that im is ikar, that im is primary. So if im is primary, so therefore, if you say, I think I said it wrong before, what Rabban's question is, I apologize. Now I'll get it right, because we're up to the question now. Now it's the punchline. He says, so therefore, if you say im is primary, so even if you drop the mehayoim, if you say, im mesi, that should also be a valid get. In other words, Rebbe's question was, he looks at the factor as being whether you said Me'ayom or not, from today or from now. If you said Mayom, therefore Rebbe says you should work regardless of whether you said Mayom im Mesi or Mayom la'achar Mosi, no matter what. Rabbana, the Rabbana, the factor is whether when you said im, with, or if. Again, it could be either one. So they say, well, if that's the factor, so then even if you drop the Mehayoim, the Im Mesi should be okay by itself. As long as you didn't say La'achar Mesi. Okay? So when you say afterwards, the Im by itself should work. So both of them are attacking the rabbis on our Mishnah. The rabbis on Mishnah said, don't seem to have a consistent view of what is the criterion. Is the criterion Me'ayom, from today, or is the criterion Im, if or when? And since neither of them, so there, the Rebbe picks the criterion of Me'ayom, and Rabbanan picked the criterion of Im, but it seems that the rabbis have Mishnah have no consistent view about that. Okay? Says the Gemara, Tamon Mechalfin. There, they switch, and Tamon means always in Bavel, as opposed to Eretz Yisrael. Mechalfin, they switch to Machlokas Rebbe and Rabbanan. That Rebbe holds that the factor is Im, and Rabbanan holds the factor is Me'ayom. Rebbe holds the factor is if or when. Rabbanan holds the factor is from today or from now. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yasser b'shem Rabbi Yochanan v'Rav Tarvei Nomi. Rabbi Yasser, the name of Rabbi Yochanan and Rav, they both said Divrei Rebbe, the words of Rebbe. Now here it says Tamon, but and the next little line it says Dahacha. But the Shari Teretz Yisrael changes it. He flips it. says Divrei Rebbe Tahacha. Here the words of Rebbe here in Eretz Yisrael. Du Rabbanan Tamon is the words of Rabbanan over there in Bavel, right? Meaning, became a Shamar Mehayom. Once you say Mehayom, if you say that it takes effect today, Kami Shamar Amanas, it means that the get is contingent upon death, but the primary factor which makes it effective is the Mehayom. So therefore works even if you said Mayom Alachamosi, because that's only a condition. But the effective date of the get is now, so therefore works no matter what. Rabbi Zir, Boykum Rabbi Yosa, Rabbi Zir asks from Rabbi Yosa, Almanas im Mesi, Almanas la Chamisa. Does Almanas work only if he said Almanas with my death? Or even he said Almanas after my death? Amarle, so he said Almanas im Mesi. And it's actually very consistent with our Mishnah, but not consistent with Rebbe, which means that even in Almanas, even if he didn't say Mayom, or he didn't say Ma'achshir, he didn't say from now, he didn't say from today, but he used the other language, which would seem to be a stronger language, indicative of the fact that one thing is primary in generating effect, and the other thing only generates a clause. If you said, it is a get on the condition that I die, right? Nevertheless, if the condition is after death, the get is invalidated by that. Okay, we don't know yet why, but the condition we will know in a few lines. But even when it's clearly relegated to a condition, and therefore of secondary importance, nonetheless the get is invalidated by such a condition. This is a position of rabbis in our Mishnah. Rabbi disagrees. Okay, Rabbi B'Shem Rav said. Rabbi Buz's name Rav said differently. He said Divrei Rebbe. And here again, the Sharater so flips the Halchan Tamon. Divrei Rebbe Tamon, the Rebbe according to the Babylonian version, to Rabbanan, the Halcha is like the rabbis here in Eretz Yisrael. How so? Mikay and Shamar, according to that version, Mikay and Shamar, if he said, it says here Me'ayom, but that's a mistake because obviously we're going according to the other side, the Me'ayom is not the factor. Rather it should be Mikay and Shamar la'achar misa. Once you said after death, Kimi Shamar, it's as if you said, I'm sorry, and here again, Shaitar so changes, it says Kimi Shamar la'achar misa. He said, change that Shalom Amar Me'ayom. If you said, because remember, the Rabbanan in Eretz Yisrael held that the factor is the im, and that's what Rebbe holds according to the Babylonians, and therefore, what in essence it means is that if a guy said im, it should work. If he says im mesi, it works. So why is it working? If he says la'achar misa, right? Even if it says me'ayom. Because the la'achar misa delays the effectiveness of the get until after death, and therefore it's invalidated. Okay? So again, they hold theoretically, where one to have made the get effective in a way which has a condition attached of with my death or after death, it might still work. But since they hold that they hold that. No, I take that back. No, that was wrong. But what the rabbis, what the Rabbanan in Eretz Yisrael, who Rebbe, according to the Babylonians, held, is that whatever you said la'achar misa on any part of your statement, that in and of itself wrecks the get. Okay, even if you said ma'ayom la'achar misa, that wrecks the get, because it only can work if I said if or when I die, but not if I said after death. Okay? Now we still don't know the reasons. And we're going to throw another issue into the pie here. But that's the end of all the Girsa changes. Talmud learned over there. Hakosin the Chosel Levanav. So he writes all his property to his children. He writes it all over to his children. Tzorach Sheichlev has got to write Me'ayom Ulachar Moso. Yes, right, takes effect today and after his death. Divi Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Yossi says you don't have to write Me'ayom, it's effective today. Why is that? My time is Rabbi Yossi. Not because you don't have to make it effective today. You do have to make it effective today. But the date of the document suffices in lieu of Hayom. You don't actually have to write the words Hayom. You just have to write the date in the document. That suffices. Be that as it may, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochim. Now we come to the punchline. Rabbi Shimon bar Yochim oil uvda kumi Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Shimon bar Yochim brought the whole sugi we just learned from Rabbi Yochanan. Based on our mission, he said, I don't understand what's going on. We just said, if you're giving a gift, you write the document to say it works from today and after my death, and that's a valid form of a gift, right? Yet, on the other hand, we said in our Mishnah, ain't no get. Except according to Rebbe, we hold that from today and after my death is not a valid get. Why? Why by a gift does it work, and yet by a get it does not work? Very basic and important question, right? Question which really underlies everything we learned till now. So it says the Gemara, Chavraya b'shem Rabbi Yochanan said, Eino Israto. Chavraya and Rabbi Yochanan said, it's not the same pathway. Israto in Aramaic means a path or a road. They're not going on the same road. In other words, there's a fork in the road. The cases are different. Let me just make a notation here because it's something which I saw.
Here's where the first spot goes, and here's where the tree is.
Okay, so Rabbi Zir b'Shem, why? Rabbi Zir b'Shem Rabbi Yochanan said, "Eino ki gittin, eino kamatona." Same thing. It's not the get and matona, not the same thing. Why is that? Now we finally come to the punchline. Amar Ila said b'matona. Very cool distinction, actually. Very fine. Amar Ila b'matona became a chara me'ayom. Once by a gift, once you said this should take place from today, matana gemuru. It's a total gift from today. So what does the condition do? Why do you say mayom la'achar misa? Lays the dover kasa bar la'achar misa. Why do you say it only should be effective after death? So he can still retain, the father can still retain the rights to eat the fruit as long as he's alive. His kids don't turn him out and put him in the poorhouse, right? So he wants to retain the right to eat fruit as long as he's alive. But the title of the field he's giving immediately. Okay, and that works by gift. By a gift of a monetary, of land. You can draw a distinction. You have the title, I still retain the right to eat the fruit. That works, that's legitimate. Okay? However, by get, Nikemich Kasa Mayom, once you wrote Mayom, the get should take effect immediately. Karusu. That should be a severance, right? The get should be severance. So why'd you make condition say but it only takes effect after death? L'shayir la'gufa. You know why he left that? Because you want to have still rights over your wife. What do you mean? I don't know if you want to actually have relations with her, or you just want to have, some kind of rights over her. Well, actually, the rights of having relations. I guess that's really what it is. And therefore, that's not a valid get. Because by a get, there's no such thing as get and retaining a relationship with the wife. And that's a critical component. We haven't really seen that getting yet explicitly, but it is later. And again, you need always have to have grus kita. A get must be a complete and total severance. By a gift, you can give the title of a gift to retain achilas peiros and retain the right to eat fruit. But by a get, you cannot give a get and retain some wifely relationship with her or husbandly relationship with your wife. And therefore, mayoim ulachar moisi works by matana. You give him the title now and achilas peiros lachar zman. Mayom al-Chamosi does not work by get because you cannot give the wife the title now and still retain the marriage bond to some extent. It's got to be severed, lock, stock, and bound now, otherwise it doesn't work.
So even if it wasn't after it was still being valid, as you said, after 3 months?
No, because then it's going to be after 3 months. That's a good point. If he said from today and after 3 months, so after 3 months there'll be severance, right? But here, when will the severance ever take place? Only after the husband's death. But that means the marriage lasted a lifetime, literally speaking, right? You can't, so if the severance would take place during the husband's lifetime, that would make it a valid get. But if the severance is not going to take place until the marriage is terminated by other means anyway.
Oh, so you say like 10 years, so you know you're going to live 10 years.
No, that's good enough. You don't. But that's considered to be, if it's time linked, as opposed to life linked.
You say
yeah, 25 years.
99 years.
Yeah, you could say 99 years. It'd still be a valid get. That's right. But if you said la'achamosi, I don't know if 99 years, but as long as it's a reasonable amount of time, you could say that. That's taka true. Yes. Okay? Because at some point it'll be severed. Armalate. I'm Rabbi Boone. So in the fourth line from the bottom now, Arabu Bar Kana Kumi Rabbi Ilay. Wait a minute, maybe it's like he didn't want to retain husbandly, wifely rights over her. He just wanted to take my sedeh. He wanted to retain the right to her handiwork, which is a cash right. Amarle, so he said, he has no such thing. We can never found a woman who's married to Ruvain, and Shimon has the rights over her handiwork. In other words, once you're divorced, you can't retain rights to her handiwork anymore. If you're retaining rights, want to retain rights to her handiwork, it's a sign that you still want to exercise husbandly rights over her. So that means your get is invalid. Vava Rabbi Zira Mekalisle, Rabbi Zira, so when he heard Rabbi Eli give the svara and defense of his svara, Rabbi Zira praised him. But Tzavachle, and he called him Bani Adoraisa, a builder of Torah, which obviously was a great honorific in those days. Says more now. After get shiur came, by get shiur also we say, interesting thing, interesting parallel. By releasing a slave, you say this is your release. Now he's a slave, and you say to him this is your release for now after 30 days. I'll die to Rebbe, according to Rebbe, to get when I raise again to get when immediately. I'll die to Rabbanan ain't a get. According to Rabbanan, it's not a get. Not right now, but when will it become a get? In 30 days. Because Rebbe always holds me'ayoim and me'achshav make the effective date immediately, right? Rabbanan hold, even though you said me'ayoim me'achshav, but when's the effective date? 30 days hence. According to Rabbanan, you could also construct a clause which will make the effective date immediately and make it conditional. But this is not the way to do it. It's not through me'ayom or me'achshav, but rather through almanas, right? Almanas is a condition. It's explicit language of condition. So therefore, when you said me'ayom me'achshav, that's a question according to Rebbe that's considered to be to make the 30 days conditional, and the effective date is immediately. According to Rabbanan, it's not conditional, and the effective date is 30 days hence. And until those 30 days elapse, you could still renege on the deal. Okay. Says the Gemara, Hefker came. The same thing is true by Hefker. Sadi move keres. Hefker means when I relinquish ownership of my field. Hefker. So, probably it's spelled with a pay here. It's spelled in the Yerushalmi, it's spelled with a base, right? Hefker came. Sadi move keres me'achshav. I say my field is now relinquished me'achshav. From now, after 3 days, I'll die to Rebbe, move keres. According to Rebbe, it's hefker. I'll die to Rabbanan, according to Rabbanan, any move keres, it's not hefker. Now, the truth is, we always paskin like Rebbe, except by Gittin. By Gittin, it don't paskin like Rebbe. I always paskin like Rebbe that kol me'omer me'achshav, kol me'almanas dami. Anytime we say me'achshav, it's like omer me'almanas. It makes it a conditional clause, as opposed to delaying the effective date. But I think, I didn't look up the halacha, and to be honest with you, I might be lying about this. But I think that in our Mishnah where it said, Mayom ul'archa moisi, we do pass in that way. It's not a valid get, because by getting, when you make a condition of that sort, it's to retain some sort of ownership in your wife, and that doesn't work. I think that that's the case. I'm not sure if I can find it quickly. Let me just see if I can find it quickly. It sounds good, but I don't know if it's true. Yeah, that's right. I'm correct. I read the way Shulchan Aruch passes the raising itech mi'achshav u'me'yom l'achar misa is it's interesting. Let me read you all three halachas here because it's interesting. I raise the itech this is your get when I die. You'll get when I die from this disease. You'll get after death. Ain't no get. It's not a valid get because he didn't say me'ayom, right? And there, and again, this is like if you didn't say me'ayom, so it's indefinite, right? Some say it's a suffix how we pass in this case. Harezitech me'ayom from today. In Macy with my death, or me'achshav Macy, or from now if with my death. Harezit get it's about get because because of the me'ayom. And when the guy dies, she's divorced retroactively. For Yoser Tov, it's interesting. The Shulchan Aruch says it's better shomer me'achshav. They should say from now shomer me'ayom. Shomer me'ayom, because if he says from today, umeis b'soch hayom, and he dies today, right? It's not clear. Shema ain't died zaito el b'soch hayom. Maybe he only meant that the end of the day should be divorced. Then get lacham, no get after death. Now, the next halacha is our halacha. Raising tech mi'achshav or me'ayom ulachar misa. Right? So you get from now or for today and after death. Umeis and he dies. I raise a suffix mugureshes. We don't know if she's mugureshes or not. Shema achar shamar mi'achshav. Maybe I have to say mi'achshav chazabo milosha mi'achshav because he still wants to retain some wifely, rights over her. So therefore, if some chadait la'achamisa really intends for it to take place after death. Okay? Says similarly in the Gemara says last few lines for the Mishnah af behektish kain so to by hektish. Do we say actually it's a question af behektish kain? Do we say the same thing by hektish that it's machlokas? Says more no. Kol everybody concedes. When you say you're going to give things to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's like you give it to it's like giving to a commoner. So meaning. From the time you made it, even according to Rabbanan, it takes place immediately. It doesn't lapse. No, we don't give any 30-day lapse. The 30 days might be conditioned, but the gift is immediately. Okay? Ab Kiddushin Kain. What about by Kiddushin? We say the same thing, that it's also conditional 30 days. Ashkatane, they found the Rebbe Omer Mekudesh, the Kiddushin Gemurin. The Kiddushin is is immediate according to Rebbe, but the assumption is that Rabbanan argue, Rabbanan say also, it only takes place after 30 days. Okay? Says the Mishnah Halacha Dalet. Azegi teich me'ayom im mesi. This is, by the way, good evening. Oh, so dressed up. I can't deal with you when you're dressed up like that. And it's almost never wears. What? So tonight, we learn, obviously, and not tomorrow night, and not Thursday night. Then, next week, in Yirtzeh Hashem, we'll learn Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, not Thursday, and I'm not and probably not the entire following week. Although the entire following week, we may learn Thursday the following week after that. But certainly, next Thursday, and then the following Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're not learning. Okay? So, playing take vacations, that's a good time. Says, next is Saturday. This Motzei Shabbos Nachmo, or the one after that. Okay, for a week or 2 weeks. This is your get from today. If when I die, or when they're interchangeable from this illness. The thing is, the guy, he didn't die. He got up, and obstinate fellow. He got up and he walked around the marketplace. And then he got sick and died. He got sick again and died. Only so we have to check him out. If he died because of the initial illness, I raise a get because he did die because of that illness. If not, get, it's not considered to be a valid get. Now, it's a very interesting halacha. She should not seclude himself with him unless they're Eidim present. Now, the Eidim are not Eidim on the seclusion, but rather Eidim that nothing goes on between the two of them. Because if something goes on between the two of them, it cancels the get. In other words, if after having written your wife a get, you live as husband and wife with her, you have to start from scratch. The get is canceled. Okay? It's like Sota, right? Similar in that respect. So therefore, means there should always be somebody present. I feel Eved, I feel Shivcha, even a slave or maidservant. except for her maidservant, because her heart is too familiar, accustomed to her shivcha, and therefore maybe there'll be something going on between the two of them, even if her shivcha is present in the room. What's her status during those days, between the time the get is issued and the time that the guy dies? She's a married woman. Rabbi Yosef she's in a twilight zone. Somewhat divorced and somewhat not divorced. Now this guy said, if I die because of this illness, it's a valid get, right? And then he he ate a large dish of bean porridge, and he dropped dead. Okay? So, yeah. That's not considered to be a bona fide cause of death, and therefore we say he must have died of the initial illness, whatever that was. Okay? No, it depends on the next line. If he ate not the beans, but the husks of the beans, pundakos like literally means little motels. I mean, it's bean motels, like pea pods. So he ate the pea pods, the v'lo and then he didn't get up, meaning he died from that. So it's a pea pod porridge. Some people say it's another pundakos, it's a specific type of nut, not the pods. I like the shot that it's the pods. So anyway, then he didn't die because of that death, the initial illness. He died because he ate the pods. Okay. A guy said, if I die from this illness, it'll be a get. But he was stricken by a tidal wave, or bitten by a snake. Ain't no get. It's not a valid get. He didn't die from that illness. What if, however, if he phrase like this, says, if I don't rise from this illness, then it's a valid get. And then a wave fell upon him, or he's bitten by a snake. Again, in that case, it is a valid get, because only Shloman Meil Sacholi, right? He didn't get up from that illness. He didn't die from that illness, but that wasn't the condition. The condition was he shouldn't rise in that holy, right? In that death. Okay. Rabbi Yaakov, Tani, we learned Afa Mesukar. This is going back to the Mishnah. I should actually put a little dot in my Gemara. Tani Afa Mesukar. In our Mishnah, it said that you shouldn't seclude yourself with your wife after having given her a get, right? Even if you are in an imminent state of danger, right, of dying, you can't seclude yourself, because one can never dismiss the Nelson Rockefeller factor. Okay, and that's what it says. Okay, I assume most people here are aware of the Nelson Rockefeller factor. He died. What? He died of a heart attack in a compromising position, as far as I recall. So that's correct, right? What? Actually, there's a president of France. I was just listening to a tape in the 1890s who also, must have been more than one president of France who died that way. But anyway, there's a famous case like that. So Rabbi Yaakov Barach, and then Rabbi Yaakov Barach said, Taka Maiso Haya, the Taka is such a case, Bahen Shabbat, a guy who had relations with his wife, after having issued a get, right? Mace, he died, and Shlomo Mil Holy. People who saw said, well, it must be valid get because he didn't rise from that illness. But in fact, it was an invalid get. Why? Because he had relations with her between the time he wrote the get and the time of its effect. Okay? So, it's always a danger. So now the Gemara goes on and continues. An evidence, Shivcha are believed to say that, there's no hanky-panky going on between a husband and wife. Says Mark, no, we don't need their nemonis. You're missing the point, says Mark. We don't need their credibility. Rather, yodim heim or edim shebeshoshnis yachtoimo hoishoyasham eve v'shivcha. This is probably a little bit of excess verbiage here, but it means that they know if there's somebody present in the room to restrain themselves. We don't need the nemonis of the edim later on to come and say nothing occurred. Rather, we need that there should be a deterrent, and the evidence shivcha serve as a valid deterrent. It's a chaperone, not a witness, right? Ki'ada. Now, it's like this. Now, this is actually, according to Bnei Moshe, is a separate statement. And it's much easier, even though it says ki'ada, which usually means it. The previous sentence is like this. It's actually a separate statement. It's easier to learn like the Bnei Moshe. Ki'ada, nisyachte mo ifnei shnayim. Now this is if he actually went to seclusion with his ex, she should have been ex-wife. He wrote her a get, but then he went to seclusion with her, and now the two people were standing outside the door. They saw him go into the motel, into the room with her. She needs another get. Why? Because the first get we say was invalidated by the seclusion. We don't know what went on behind closed doors. But in fact, we know the seclusion took place in front of two witnesses. In and of itself indicates that there's a problem here. And they have to write a new get. However, now this is a very big chiddush. I don't recall this from the Bavli. A couple of things we saw tonight really are not in the Bavli, but this is a very interesting chiddush. Be'echad. If only one person saw them go into seclusion, they don't need a second get. And the reason, the Pnei Moshe says an amazing reason. He says that the reason is that the way the Pnei Moshe learns it, I don't know if I agree with him about this, but he says we need to have, in order to cancel get, we need to have Bil Hashem Kiddushin. Right? Now this is, let's do what we talk about here. We're talking about it here where the get was written, it was given on condition, right? It's given on condition as a valid get from today if I die from this illness, right? So what cancels the get, according to Pnei Moshe, when it's valid, actually, I think I do like it, a valid bia for the purpose of marriage. So then, the get took effect, but then you remarried her by having relations with her. But in order to marry a woman, the marriage has to take place in front of witnesses. So witnesses don't have to see the bia, but they have to see the yichud, right? So therefore you need how many witnesses to witness the yichud? Two. Right. So therefore, if the only one witness witnessed the yichud, it doesn't cancel the get. It's a very interesting svara. Okay? Now,
Use the analogy of a soka, because the soka, when she secludes herself, the Baal needs two witnesses.
no, one. There's a special halacha by Sota. If there are two, she gets divorced without a ksuba. If there's one, then you go through the waters. Okay? So Naaman says, what about be'echo b'sharas ve'echo ben arbaim? One witness saw her secluded in the morning with her husband, and another saw her secluded in the afternoon with her husband. Okay? But it wasn't two at the same time. So Zeh Maisa, this is such the Maisa. V'shal Rabbi Elazar ben Tadoy. So it says actually Masech the Saita where this sugi appears as well. Shal Rabbi Elazar ben Tadoy Chachamim. V'ram, they said Ein Zi Yichud. It's not Yichud. Why? Because here we need that the Yichud be in front of two, and one in the morning, one in the afternoon, they don't join together. Nisyachti Mokatei Be'ila. Now, if they were together enough time in the room, that theoretically Be'ila could have taken place. Choshin la mishum be'ila, vein choshin la mishum kiddushin. We're afraid that we assume be'ila took place, but we don't necessarily assume that kiddushin took place. That is very strange. What exactly we're talking about? The Gemara is going to discuss this. So I guess there's a Bryce, and then the Gemara is going to explain it. Rabbi Yosef, you don't matter. Av choshin la mishum kiddushin. We're also afraid because of kiddushin. Rabbi Yirmiyah, that's the Bryce. Now, Rabbi Yirmiyah Pata Masdisa. Rabbi Yirmiyah explained the Bryce as following, and then Rabbi Yosef is going to argue on the Pshat. Rabbi Yirmiyah Pata Masdisa explained the Bryce, and the Siachti Mokadei Bila, they're long enough time for the Kadei Bila, Chayshishah Mishum Bila's Nus. Then we assume they perhaps had Bila, but it would be Bila's Nus. Like, Ve'en Chayshishah Mishum Kiddush Bila, we don't consume that there was a Kiddushin took place via this Bila. Loni Siachti Mokadei Bila. Now, if they weren't secluded long enough for Be'ila to take place, we don't assume anything took place. Now, the truth is that the way the Pnei Moshe learns it, this is still talking about after a get, right? And we say if they went in just enough time for a Be'ila, so then we just assume that Be'ila, and not that he renewed his marriage contract with her, right? And if there were less time to even be her, so there's no, we don't assume anything took place. But I find that a little bit difficult, because why shouldn't we assume that he did it for a purpose of Kiddushin? So I actually think that this maybe is talking, and I could be totally wrong about this, but I actually think it's talking about a man and woman off the street. If they go, they're secluded, could they be her? Right? Okay? That's how I would learn it. That's not taking place after get, but it's taking place just off the street. Right? So to speak. So now, the Rabbi Yosef Rita argues with Rabbi Yirmiyah is a different shot. Rabbi Yosef Rita I'm sorry, this is from the Brisa. And Rabbi Yossi says, this is all Rabbi Yirmiyah speaking. I had stopped before we got to the end of Rabbi Yirmiyah. Yossi Domer, Bila was afraid. And no, maybe, again, according to Pnei Moshe, after a get, that he renewed the marriage through the Bia. And according to the way I'm learning, that if a man and woman live together, that generates Kiddushin, as long as we know that. Now this in fact was a famous shita of Rav Henkin. Rav Henkin held that if a man and woman live together, common law marriage, that's considered to be enough of a Kiddushin to require a get. Right? And it seems that this, the way I'm learning the Yerushalmi, it seems to be in essence that's what the Yerushalmi is saying. Rav Moshe had a machlokas with him. It's famous machlokas Rav Henkin, Rav Moshe. Rav Henkin had said they need a get, and Rav Moshe said they didn't need a get. Rav Henkin said they need a get because common law marriage, mistama, they intended to contract the marriage between the two of them by living together. Rav Moshe said no, mistama, they didn't intend to contract the marriage by living together. In other words, why? Because they relied on the civil marriage. Right? Well, actually, it's about civil marriage, not common law marriage. I take that back. They relied on civil marriage. They didn't intend to make an additional kiddushin via the living together. Common law marriage, the Taka didn't discuss. Common law marriage would be a separate issue. There's a Rivash who says that if they're not makbid on taras hamishpacha, so we don't have to assume that they had in mind for the purpose of marriage either. Because that means they're willing to live in sin, so they're willing to live in sin altogether. But theoretically, our Yerushalmis would be good, if the way I'm learning it, don't look like you're in pain.
I know there's some, I don't know who it is, says the situation you're talking about is the Har Yavor, that is because they are doing this for Har Hesed because you're Har Yavor, and it certainly would not be I know who that flute is. I don't remember the name now, but the next time we get together, I'll get the name.
Okay.
According to Rav Henkin, if this woman decides to now have another civil marriage without having a divorce,
Kids and mamzer. According to Rav Henkin, they are, yeah.
I heard that was the reason why Rav Moshe made this decision.
Rav Moshe didn't make the decision. That's apikorsis. Rav Moshe couldn't make a decision because the kids would be mamzerim. Rather, he can make a decision based on logic and then say, and as a result, the kids are not mamzerim. Rav Moshe fights would not have been Rav Moshe Feinstein, or he would have been a Rackman if he would do things like that. Rackman changes halach in order to prevent mamzerim. Rav Moshe Feinstein paskin, then sometimes his psakim prevented mamzerus. Okay. We hold like Rav Moshe. General psak follows Rav Moshe in this area. That civil marriages do not share. The Rogachev is interesting shita, which I don't know if it's based on. I don't think it's based on the Yerushalmi, but the Rogachev held that a common law marriage is a marriage, but it doesn't create mamzerus. In other words, it's like a lower form of marriage, right? From our Yerushalmi, it sounds like it could theoretically be a full-blown marriage. But the Rogachev held it was a lower form of marriage, like you have between two goyim. Right, two goyim, they don't have contract kiddushin, therefore there's no mamzerus by goyim. It's a lower form of marriage. So that was the Rogacher's approach, which is interesting and unique, but doesn't seem to fit in this Yerushalmi here. Anyway, again, it could be I'm totally wrong. It could be this is Dafka talking about after a get took place and renewing a marriage. But if I'm right, then this is talking about even from scratch.
I mean, why would they just bring this out of left field? Just two men and women walking off the street. What you're saying
Is that as long as
But that's what you're saying.
Right.
But that's
Where it's clearly not a prostitute relationship. I have to clarify that. She's not, yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean, that was not mentioned before in the Gemara.
No, it's not mentioned, but you're right. That's why the Pnei Moshe... Granted, could be I'm wrong. That's why it's quite granted. You could be wrong. Now, all this was Rabbi Yirmiyah's interpretation. Rabbi Yossi has a much more novel interpretation. Rabbi Yossi Patlam in Masnisa, he explains the price like this. If they spent enough time in seclusion to have relations, by the way, I think that the minimum amount is considered to be like 35 seconds, some extremely short period. So if it's we assume that whatever time of relations they had were biaznus, and we don't assume that there were any kiddushin took place by the bia. What if they were not long enough? Could they be la? We don't even concern mishum kiddushin bekesef. You might think, okay, they didn't have enough time to the bia. It was only 10, 15 seconds. Well, not 35. But maybe he slipped a ring on her finger, right? Maybe he gave her a quarter. So maybe she's married through kesef. So that says Rabbi Yossi's interpretation. Rabban, we're not even afraid of kiddushay kesef. Rabbi Yossi or Yehuda Omer, if they were secluded, but not long enough for bia, so then we're afraid of kiddushay kesef. We're afraid that he gave her money inside. So everybody agrees in Rabbanan, both Rabbi and Rabbi Yossi agree in Rabbanan that the yichud in and of itself does not constitute kiddushin, right? We assume that the bia took place, so we don't assume any kiddushin took place. And vice versa, according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, actually, I didn't get there again. I didn't get there yet. Sorry, I didn't read Rabbi Yossi Yehuda yet. Rabbi Yossi Yehuda Omer. Oh no, I did read it. I'm sorry. According to Rabbi Yossi Yehuda, there's a machlokas. In that Rabbi Yossi Yehuda, there's a machlokas. Rabbi Yirmiyah says in Rabbi Yossi Yehuda that if they were secluded long enough for bia, then we say the bia was kiddushin. Okay, Rabbanan argue, but Rabbi Yossi Yehuda the bia was kiddushin. According to Rabbi Yossi's interpretation, Rabbi Yossi Yehuda, no. If they're secluded long enough for bia, they had bia, and that bia was not for the purpose of kiddushin. Even according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. But we're afraid if they weren't secluded long enough for bia, that he gave her a ring, and there's a kiddushay kesef issue. It's a fascinating concept. I don't know exactly what the issue, but that's what it says. That's what he says.
So now we had in the Yevamos about bias nose versus whether just about whether all bia is bia.
Yeah.
All bia is bia snun, is bia is kedushin, or can there be a concept?
Well, I don't remember that for Yevamos, but that certainly is what I did. But again, as I said, Pnei Moshe and now Carbonata too would say this is a story about Dafka after get, which would make sense because otherwise, if they were secluded for 10 seconds, why would you assume he gave her a ring, right? Just because a man and woman are secluded for 10 seconds, why would you assume he gave her a ring? But according to you, they were married once before, and then he gave her a get, so maybe you would assume there is a ring. Anyway, the sugi is sufficiently ambiguous that probably one could say anyway. Either way. Rabbi Ivan said, turning the page, Asya the Beis Shammai Kurabbanan. Now, this is kind of going out of left field, but this is a case which comes in later on in Gittin. Beis Shammai says, if you're, I don't mention about a case where you wrote to your wife a divorce, but you made contingent, and then you had a seclusion with her, right? And then you need to write another get, right? But later on, we're going to have the case where you actually gave your wife a full get. The way we described this in morning shiur last time we were getting, you went to the CRC, which used to be on Peterson, and after you went to the CRC to give your wife a get, you went into the Patio Motel or any of one of those other motels along Lincoln Avenue, right? So in that case. So Beis Shammai says you don't need a second get because that's a bias nus, right? It's after the termination of marriage. Beis Hillel says you need a second get because we assume that if you went with her back into the motel, you probably had in mind to marry her again. Okay? So Beis Shammai Krabbanan. Beis Shammai is like Krabbanan that there's no intent to renew the marriage, right? And therefore you don't need a second get. Just over here, also like Rabbanan said over here, the bia is a bias nus. There's no bias kedushin involved, right?
What is the basis for that opinion?
What? What's going on through their minds? What's going on in their minds? Because in the old days, we assumed everybody had Victorian sensibilities. So therefore, there's a legitimate possibility that if they're going to have relations, maybe they intend to contract marriage again. No?
No, what is the reason behind the rabbis?
Which rabbis? Who say it's not a marriage?
Yeah. So they don't intend it.
Oh, because they're just engaged in having a good time. There's some statistics I read years ago, I don't remember where it was, that there's an extremely high percentage of divorced couples who still engage in intimate relations even after they're divorced. Yeah. Because until they get married to somebody, until they hook up with other people, so they're used to it, so they continue. So that's the question: is whether that considered to? It's an amazing concept, but yeah, that's the way it works. So the question is that considered to consecrate a new marriage or not. That's machlokas Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai says it does not, and Beis Hillel, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, that holds it does, right? Says Gemara, Leida Mila, Amar Rabbi Lezer. Now there's something completely missing from the book here, and the Shari Teres Yisrael says this is not talking about our case. We're going about a new case here, or rather an old case, which I haven't discussed in a long time because it's Masechta Ksuvas. The halacha is if you marry a woman, you don't actually become, because she doesn't actually become your full wife completely until Nisuin, right? So chuppah, right? What happens when the father gives over his daughter to the emissaries of the husband? Okay? In other words, there wasn't actually a chuppah, he didn't show up. What? After I finish here. Thank you. What happens, I'm not going to be able to talk and chew at the same time. So what happens if he gave over his daughter to the emissaries of the husband? Not actual chuppah. So Rabbi Lezer says it's like chuppah. So what respect is like chuppah? Rabbi Lezer Meli Yersha. If she drops dead now, her husband inherits her. Right? Now here we have to throw in a line. Her husband can nullify her vows if she takes the vows. Now, the next 3 lines, I'm going to change them around. I'm just going to change the order like Shari Teres Yisrael turns it around. First he adds into a couple of other words. He says, V'ka mau. Now let's bring it back to our Mishnah. You gave your wife a get, right? You said, it should be my get when I die from this illness. Me'ayom imesi. Rabbi Yehuda says she's still like an Eishes Ish for all matters. What does it mean? Is it the same thing like Rabbi Lezer over there? Do we have the same machlokas we have there in Rabbi Lezer, whether it's for inheritance or for nullifying vows, or it's somehow a different parameter over here? In other words, where here she remains an Eishes after the get, to what extent? So in that, Rabbi Zira says, min hadod detay, for that which you learned in this Tosefta. The Tosefta says, Zakai b'mtziyaso ma'isiyadeh fa'nidarea dive Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, all this is not in our Gemara, but he tried to brings it down that he gets what she finds and whatever she makes, and and she can nullify her vows. Zosomeris that teach us this isn't our Gemara. In fact, after this get, before he dies from this illness, she's like an Eishes in all manners. She completely remains the status of wife. So says more now an interesting question. Mechapish Rabbi Yehuda, seems Rabbi Yehuda contradicts himself. Here Rabbi Yehuda says, until he dies, she remains an Eishes because he's still alive, so he's still married, right? Because he said, it's the get when I die from this illness, right? So as long as he's still alive, we say, it's an Eishes, right? Now, we have a famous shita, although it's not brought down here explicitly. We have a famous shita by Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur, according to Rabbi Yehuda, was machlokas Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi have machlokas, do we prepare for him another wife or not? Because he has to have a wife. What happens if his wife drops dead? So Rabbi Yehuda says we prepare him another wife before Yom Kippur. Right? So the question is here, in that case by Yom Kippur, Rabbi Yehuda is afraid that the wife's going to die. And therefore he says we provide him another wife. But here, Rabbi Yehuda said where it says we're not afraid that the husband's going to die, and therefore she's like an Eishes Ish altogether. L'kula and l'chumra. Why are we not afraid that at any moment the guy is going to drop dead? And therefore she's not an Eishes Ish. Says more, very nice and simple answer. There the entire kapar of the Kohen Gadol is contingent on his having the entire kapar of Am Yisrael. It's contingent on the Kohen Gadol having a wife, right? Here it's just a personal thing between the two of them, right? So over there, since we're afraid that the guys we to take extra precautions, and we're a little paranoid that the wife might die. But over here, it's not so terrible, so therefore we assume the husband's not going to die, and we assume that they remain married in all ways, shape, and form. Okay? So it says, well, now the Gemara should now ask another question. We'll read Bas throws in the changes gears here. We should ask the following words. We find Rabbi Yehuda is even concerned where it's an individual issue. The time we learned Rabbi Yehuda says, Lo Yushofar Kinim B'Yushalayim. There's a whole description of how many pushkas they had in the Beis HaMikdash. And one of them was the pushkin which they used to put money, every yoledes, every woman who gave birth would put money so that they would bring korbanos on her behalf. So Rabbi says there was no such thing. You know why? Because the money would get mixed up. Maybe one of the Yolados, the woman who gave birth, would get died. And a woman who gives birth brings the chatos. And then, if she died before they brought a korban, some of the money would be the price of a chatos, which also must die. Because when a person who's liable to a chatos dies, the chatos must die with them, right? And that money mixed up with the other money, so that's a big no-no. We can't use any of that money. So Rabbi says we're afraid maybe one of the Oletas who put money in the pushka this morning is going to die by that evening. Because every day they used to clean out the pushkas, right? And therefore, that's going to make a problem. So we see Rabbi Yehuda, even by individuals, is concerned, because that's not about a whole tzibur. Individuals, Rabbi Yehuda is also concerned maybe the woman will die, right? So the Gemara doesn't really give an answer. But the Mefarshim on the bottom say that the answer is obvious. The answer is that there are many women's monies who are put together, right? So therefore, for the other women's benefit, we're afraid we have to make sure that not that whole money of the whole day goes to loss and they're stuck that never brought korbanos, right? So therefore, we're concerned we don't, according to Rabbi Yehuda, because it's not our whole entire community, but it's a bunch of women, so therefore we're concerned. Okay. Says more, be lisa mao. Now, what if somebody else had relations with, changing tax a little bit? What happens if somebody else had relations with this woman? She got a get, but the get was contingent on her husband's death, which hasn't yet occurred, right? So somebody else had relations with this woman. East tiny be losa be brua. Some say her bia is clear. Now, clear here doesn't mean what clear usually means. Clear here means unclear. But these tiny be losa something. Some say her bia is questionable. So what's in between clear and questionable? If I tell you that here clear means unclear, I'll tell you. Ma'an Rabbi Brua means it's borer maybe Oshem Toli. It's clear that we don't know if there's an Aver involved or not, and whenever we don't know if there's an Aver involved or not, we bring what? An Oshem Toli, which is brought on a questionable Aver. So that's a clarity of questionability. Okay? It's like the Rabbi Yosher Bear's famous word, it's actually the Ritva, that Bein Hashmoshos is a din suffix. You know, it's a definite suffix. Here too, it's a definite suffix, right? So it's a man might be lost of brua, maybe Hashem told you. Man might be lost of suffix, he says to be as questionable, holds that we don't know a carbon to bring. We can't bring a carbon with any definitives. And therefore, if the guy dies, so the one who had relations with the wife is potter, because retroactively it became clarified that the get was valid. Lo mace, if the guy never dies, because he rises from this illness and dies for some other cause, so there's no continuity. So then maybe chatas to bring a chatas. So there's no definite Hashem Toli. It's always a question until you see how that scenario plays itself out, whether it's altogether off the hook or chatas has to be brought. And we will stop here for today.